Everyone knows what it's like to be in a foot pursuit or to have to run or carry hose or whatever the case may be, depending if you're a firefighter or a police officer. Every one of us has experienced sucking wind and just being so tired because of intense, short periods of hard cardiovascular exertion. VO2 Max will help you in that area. So let's talk about some of the benefits to you as a police officer, as a firefighter, when it comes to VO2 Max.
Welcome to First Responder Fitness with Carl Wimmer, where armor is forged through mental, spiritual, and physical preparation.
Welcome to First Responder Fitness with Carl Wimmer, my friends. It is another amazing day, another amazing week where we can just seek our goals of having a strong physical body, healthy body, having a strong mind, and a robust spiritual life. What a great day to reset and regroup and just seek our goals. You know, it's getting colder. Winter, man, it is upon us. And, you know, the winter months are sometimes the most difficult months for physical fitness. Actually, it's some of the most difficult times for mental fitness as well, because the days are short and getting outside and getting that beautiful sun on our face and being alive and active during the daylight hours is so important. But dang, sometimes, you know, with the winter, the shortening of the days and it getting dark by 4 p.m., 4:30 p.m., whatever, it is hard. Well, I would just encourage you. I would encourage you to reset and rededicate yourself in these upcoming winter months. Remember, summer is coming. Summer 2025 is right around the corner. And if you want a summer body, which is so unimportant compared to health, right? Okay, having great blood pressure, having low body fat, having large amount of muscle mass, being metabolically healthy is far more important than the way you look. But the two go hand in hand, because it is a very rare person who is obese and metabolically healthy. In fact, they're almost a contradiction of terms. So get ready, set your goals. Make sure that you are ready to go by next summer. Make sure that you don't quit. Every decision you make right now will lead either to your success or to your disappointment. Think about that. Every decision you make starting right now will either lead to future success or future disappointment. What do you want? You are the one who can create this. You're the one that decides. What are you going to decide? Well, we have a fantastic episode for you today, my friends. I am super excited about it because it covers something that is so vastly important to first responders, so critically important to us while we're working on duty as a police officer or a firefighter. And it is so important, perhaps the single most important thing when it comes to a long, healthy, prosperous life, which is what we want, because our goal, again, is a successful, long retirement. That's our goal. We don't want to be another statistic in retirement where we can't do anything we want to do because we've had years and years of physical neglect and mental neglect. And all those years of neglect have led you to a retirement where you're spending more time with the doctors than you are with the grandkids, where you're spending more time getting diagnoses on your ailments than you're spending fishing, cruising, scuba diving, hunting, whatever it is that you want to do in retirement. Don't let that be you. Don't let that be you. Today's episode if you take it seriously, will help you to be successful in the long term and into your very, very, very old golden years, into your retirement. To set this up, I kind of think about back on my career. I think about what were some of the most physically demanding things I had to do as a police officer. Now, notwithstanding SWAT Hell Week and the SWAT schools that I attended, the things that were very, very difficult. What were the actual real events, the actual calls that were some of the most difficult? And I can think of a few. I talked about the physical fight that I was in a couple episodes ago in a church where I was getting physically exhausted from beating on somebody who would not let me go, who was scratching at my face, who was just hell-bent on killing me. That's one of them. But there's another one that I think back to where by the time it was done, my lungs were on fire, like ice fire. And I was so exhausted and so tired. And it was during a SWAT raid. My SWAT team actually teamed up with 2 other SWAT teams to do a really large hit on more of a compound than anything else. And my SWAT team's job, my team's job was to really secure the perimeter and some of the outbuildings. My specific element was to hit a large outbuilding that was used quite often as a kind of a flop house, a hang house for some of the people that were at this location. The problem was intel and recon on that particular building was very hard to get, and we didn't have a lot of details on it. And drones were not exactly what they are today, and so we just simply didn't have a whole lot of details on the building we were getting ready to hit. At least my element was getting ready to hit. I was the designated breacher that night, and so as we come up waiting for the breach command, we're looking for a door on this building. And there is only one accessible door that we could find, and it was a massive, large, double barn door. And this double barn door, we'd find out later, had 3 massive steel beams running from end to end, securing it. So you couldn't really even, it would take an armored vehicle to bust this door in. We didn't know that at first, and that was the only access we had, and it was time. It was go time, right? And when it's go time, it is go time. So I'm like, oh, what the hell? And so I just start hitting this barn door as hard as I could. And I hit it, and I hit it, and I was strong, and I was a good breacher. I mean, I never had a door that I couldn't get through until this night. And what we ultimately decided was that at very least, if there's anybody inside of this outbuilding, me pounding the crud out of this barn door will be a distraction so that those who are coming through the man door, which was on the complete other opposite side of the building and fenced off out of our access, but the other SWAT teams would be able to get to it, we would at least serve as a distraction. So I am pounding on that door, and I am going like Captain Caveman, hitting and pounding and hitting and pounding. And I grabbed the Halligan to try to bust some wood out of this door. And I am working as hard as humanly possible for probably an estimated 2.5 minutes, which doesn't sound like a long time. But when you are going 100% for 2 minutes, that is exhausting. I finally was able to knock a hole through the door. I was able to knock a hole big enough that one of our long gun, one of our gentlemen who had a long gun was able to stick his AR-15 through the hole, was able to access the room, and was able to at least port and hold the room, which was such a relief. at the end of that, my lungs were absolutely on fire. I could not catch my breath. I was so exhausted. It was unbelievable. And to add to it, we had another hit after this one was done and turned over to the detectives. We had another hit we had to go do. And I was the designated breacher again. I, on my own volition, turned the breacher job over to someone else that night for the second hit because I was done. I was absolutely exhausted. So this past weekend, my son, who is becoming a firefighter, he had what is called the Firefighter Combat Challenge for a fire department where he is planning to work. And the Firefighter Combat Challenge, it might be different in every jurisdiction, but this one consists of a long, lengthy firefighter obstacle course, pulling hose, carrying hose, doing a dummy drag, and moving heavy objects, lifting heavy objects, climbing up and down ladders, running up and down stairs. Well, walking, because you're not allowed to run as a firefighter. I didn't know that. Side note, I did not know that. As a police officer, every time I'd go on a medical call that I beat medical there, I'm running, I'm rallying, I'm moving, firefighters pull up, the paramedics pull up, and they mosey out of the vehicle and they walk and they grab their bag and they mosey across the grass. I'm like, come on! I did not know that firefighters, paramedics, medical, they have a no-run rule. I didn't know that. They are told to walk. And it actually makes a lot of sense because you don't save a whole lot of time running 20 feet versus walking 20 feet. But if you get injured while running, well, then you can't help anybody. So it does make a lot of sense, but I never understood why they went so slow. But I digress. My son killed this combat test. He absolutely tore it up. Did it in about 9 minutes. And apparently that's super fast for his department and this particular test. But afterwards, he was telling me that he was absolutely gassed out, exhausted, and tired. And that's natural. So, with that introduction, what are we talking about today? We are talking about VO2 Max. What the heck is VO2 Max? VO2 Max, scientifically, is the maximum amount of oxygen you utilize during intense exercise. It is measured by the milliliters of oxygen that you use per kilogram of body weight per minute. So how much oxygen do you consume per minute per kilogram of your body weight? You don't need to know that, but that's what VO2 max is. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it is perhaps the single biggest, most important indicator of cardiovascular and aerobic fitness. It is one of the largest, biggest, most important indicators of your health, your fitness. VO2 max is absolutely critical. And it's trained differently than probably most of you are training. As we have introduced this, if you've been with us for a while, you know that I'm a strong advocate of making sure that you do your early morning walks. That's nice zone 1 cardio. I'm also an advocate of getting the scientifically proven minimum of 150 minutes of zone 2 cardiovascular exercise per week. Both of those things, so important for building your health. But neither of those things builds your VO2 max really with any significant improvement. Your VO2 max, the amount of oxygen you consume in 1 minute per kilogram of body weight, is affected by multiple things. Your genetics affect it. So some people just have better genetics at processing oxygen. They're just naturally in better condition. Your age, VO2 max goes down with age. Your training is perhaps the most important, how you're training, and that's what we're going to talk about today. And of course, your body composition. If you are obese, if you're overweight, your VO2 max is going to be worse. Just this past week, we concluded the deer hunt. No, I did not get a deer, but I went hunting, a lot of hunting. No shooting, just a lot of hunting. And I trained VO2 max quite hard. And so I was quite impressed with how going up the hills was not super hard for me in comparison to years gone by. In years gone by, I may be sucking wind, but I could definitely tell that I had, between last deer hunting season and this deer hunting season, I could tell that I had another year of training VO2 max, another year of training cardiovascular exercise, because I was in pretty darn good shape. We want to be able to improve our body's ability to absorb, use, and efficiently maximize the oxygen we bring in. Everyone knows what it's like to be in a foot pursuit, or to have to run or carry hose, or whatever the case may be, depending if you're a firefighter or a police officer. Every one of us has experienced sucking wind and just being so tired because of intense, short periods of hard cardiovascular exertion. VO2 max will help you in that area. So let's talk about some of the benefits to you as a police officer, as a firefighter, when it comes to VO2 max. First and foremost is enhanced endurance. You will be able to perform longer and harder during a cardiovascular intense incident than somebody else if your VO2 max is higher. Bottom line, I've said it before, I will say it again. Fatigue makes cowards of all people. Once you are out of gas, once you are winded, once you have no more energy, your options are so limited. Fatigue makes cowards of all men. I repeat it in this episode. You've heard it before. It's so important. VO2 max exercise, consistent, deliberate, intentional VO2 max exercise will help you to fatigue slower. The next benefit for VO2 max training is improved heart health. Your heart will thank you. It strengthens the heart. It gives you a lower resting heart rate. It improves your circulation, and perhaps the most important thing, it lowers blood pressure. It lowers your blood pressure. And I'm telling you, blood pressure, high blood pressure is the silent killer. If you have high blood pressure, my friend, you need to treat it. You need to get to a doctor, and you need to listen to your doctor's advice. And at the same time, you need to be doing cardiovascular exercise, VO2 max exercise. You need to work to get your blood pressure down, because given enough time, high blood pressure is going to take your life. It will, if it is left untreated. VO2 max, a good high VO2 max can lead to greater calorie burn. If you're in better shape, you're more efficient. More efficient, you burn more calories. It increases your metabolic rate. So there is no downside to having a good high VO2 max. It enhances your recovery ability. And who doesn't want that? If you can recover quicker, more efficiently between exercise days and between workout days, that is a huge plus. So having a strong, powerful VO2 max will help aid in recovery. And lastly, the benefit that I love the most is having a higher VO2 max is associated with a lower risk of all-cause premature death and chronic diseases. I'll say that again. Having a high VO2 max is associated with lower risk of all-cause mortality, premature death, and chronic diseases. Having a strong VO2 max will give you a longer life. All things being equal, it will absolutely give you a longer life. Let's talk a little bit more about the longevity benefits of VO2 max. Cardiovascular health. Studies have shown that a higher VO2 max is linked to lower incidence of heart disease. If you have a high VO2 max, heart disease is less of a risk to you. That's huge, because I've already explained to you on a number of occasions that heart disease is the number one killer of law enforcement officers. It is the number one killer of firefighters. You want to reduce your risk of heart attack and heart disease, you need to have a strong, powerful VO2 max. There have been multiple meta-analyses conducted that show that low fitness levels are obviously a significant predictor of all-cause mortality. Contrary to that, VO2 max, having a high VO2 max, is the exact opposite. It's a significant predictor of longevity and health. It leads to a better quality of life. You will be healthier, longer. You will not only live longer, but your health span will be longer. You will live longer, healthier. Instead of being a 50 or 60-year-old who, can barely get around, someone who's in retirement, you can barely get around, you will still be vibrant and be able to function well with a high VO2 max. Have I convinced you of the importance of having a good, high, thriving VO2 max? I hope so. But how do we train it? How do we train VO2 max? The key training methods to improve VO2 max is essentially what people nowadays call HIIT training, high intensity interval training. You've got to work near your maximum capacity for a period of time. Now, there are a couple different theories behind this and a couple different ways to do this. High intensity interval training, which let's just say by definition, it's not really high intensity if you're not going 100% all out, working your guts out. Most people do interval training. It's intense interval training. And they'll do 30 seconds of work and 30 seconds of rest. And they'll do that over and over and over, but they're not pushing it super hard during the work portion. That's a mistake. The harder you work during the work portion, the better, especially if you're doing short periods. So let's first talk about the high intensity interval training method to improving VO2 max. This would include short bursts of intensity followed by a short period of rest, okay? Think about everything that is cross training, okay? You do 30 seconds of burpees, and then you rest for 45 seconds. And then you do 30 seconds of burpees, and you rest for 45 seconds. And you repeat that for as many rounds as you can do in 15 minutes. Or jumping rope as hard as you can, and then doing cleans and doing whatever, doing a cycle of very short, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, then stopping and resting for 30 seconds to a minute, 15 seconds, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, whatever that looks like for you. This high intensity interval training is one way to improve VO2 max. You could go out and sprint for 30 seconds, followed by a minute of walking. Go to the track, sprint the straights, walk the curve, sprint the straights. Do that for 15 to 20 minutes, 30 minutes if you can, work up to it, build up to it. And that's one way to build VO2 max. I don't mind that at all. In fact, that's one of the methods I use. And I'm going to talk about some of my favorite exercises here in a minute, but that's one of the methods I use. Another method that is becoming more accepted and even more researched, and it is one that has been proven through multiple studies to improve VO2 max, is to actually extend that interval period to up to 3 or 4 minutes at a time. So you're not going 100% because nobody can work 100% for 4 minutes, but you are pushing it. You're pushing hard for 3 or 4 minutes, and then you're resting or lowering the intensity dramatically for a minute, and then doing that again for doing the hard work. So you're working hard for 3 to 4 minutes, you're resting for a minute, you're working hard for 3 or 4 minutes, you're resting for a minute, and you do that for 3 or 4 or 5 rounds. You can do that for 15 minutes or 20 minutes. That will leave you fatigued, and it definitely improves your VO2 max. So what are some of my favorite exercises? If we're talking the high intensity interval training where you work hard for 30 to 45 seconds and then you rest for 30 or 45 seconds, and you do that repeatedly through multiple cycles, one of my most favorite exercises is to use kettlebells. Kettlebell, two-handed swings, one-handed swings, the snatches, the cleans, using kettlebells hard. Not just playing with them, but using a weight that fatigues you, a weight that works you, and making sure that you are working hard with the kettlebells. Man, that raises your heart rate. It raises your breathing. It gets you tired. And so I love doing high intense intervals, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, or 45 seconds on, 30 seconds off, these intervals with kettlebells. Quite often, when I'm doing a kettlebell workout, a high intense workout, cycling that way, I will throw in the assault bike. Those are brutal. If you can do the assault bike as hard as you can go for 30 to 45 seconds as one of your work cycles. So if you have an interval timer, you just set the interval timer for 30 seconds of work, 35 seconds of work with 30 seconds rest. And let's say you're going to do 20 intervals. You could do almost everything. You can do burpees, you can do mountain climbers, you can do the kettlebells, do the assault bike. You just mix it up, but you're working hard. The key to VO2 max is you are working hard. By far, without question, my favorite VO2 max exercise is boxing, hitting the bag. And of course, this comes back to the fact that I was a competitive fighter for a very long time. I'm now 50 years old. I'm older. I'm slower. I don't quite have the maneuverability I used to have as a 19-year-old man, but I can still swat. I can still hit that bag hard. I still can move, and I can still use it to fatigue myself. So I'll do 3-minute rounds, just like a boxing match. I'll do 3-minute rounds, 1 minute rest in between, and I'll do anywhere from 3 to 5 rounds in a row. If you haven't done this before, you will be shocked at how fatiguing bag work can be, especially if you're not playing. If you're just going there and you're toying around and you throw a punch here and there, yeah, okay, fine. But if you're working and you're moving and you're punching, 3 minutes is a long, long time. And you have to be in condition for that. It is my absolute favorite VO2 max exercise, and I'm going to do it as long as I'm alive. Until they put me in the pine box, I will be boxing and practicing and training self-defense, martial arts, fighting, and those types of things. It's just good for you, builds your flexibility, and improves your VO2 max. I absolutely love it. So how often should we train VO2 max? It's largely up to you, but the fact is training VO2 max is hard and it is taxing on the nervous system. If you are a relatively young person and you're in good shape, you could probably do 2, maybe 3 VO2 max exercises per week and not have it affect your weight training negatively. I cannot. I do at least 1 VO2 max exercise per week, 1 VO2 max routine per week, sometimes 2. And the way I implement it is quite simple. I go to the gym, I get on the elliptical machine, and I'll do 20 minutes on the elliptical machine just to try to get a little bit of zone 1, zone 2 cardio. Okay. And that warms me up. I do my weightlifting. If you haven't watched the basics of weightlifting episode, I'll link it at the end of this. Go into it, watch it. But I'll go in and I will do my push, my pull, or my leg day with the supersets. And then at the end of my weight training is when I do my VO2 max exercise. So I'm already fatigued. But that's when I'll hit the bag. I'll go and I'll set up interval timer for 3 minutes on, 1 minute off, 3 to 5 rounds. And I'll do my VO2 max at the end of my workout. So it's a lot of work. I can only do 1 or 2 of those a week without it affecting my ability to recover, without it affecting recovery time. It's very difficult. So you do need to allow at least, regardless of your age, a day or 2, preferably 48 hours between these high intense VO2 max workouts. You can't come in and do them every single day. If you do them every single day, something else is going to give. Something else is going to suffer. Whether it's your zone 2 cardio or whether it's your weight training, something else is going to suffer. So you need to really be cautious. About every 48 hours is as often as you should be doing a VO2 max exercise. And making sure that you're getting enough recovery and you're listening to your body. Pay attention to your fatigue. Pay attention to the signs of nervous system fatigue and bodily fatigue. We don't want to overtrain. Overtraining is nearly as bad as undertraining, so we don't want to do that. Okay, we want to take care of ourselves. With that being said, you can use progressive overload on this. So let's just say that you decide you're going to do some kettlebells. And you find that you can only do like 7 minutes total. Like you go through your 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, and 7 minutes into this, like you've done 4 or 5 rounds, and you're exhausted. Perfect. Don't worry about it. Call it good. Rest your 48 hours, your 50 hours, whatever that looks like for you. Do it again later that week, and try to do 1 more. There's this ancient samurai word, and I know those of you that know the word are going to say I'm saying it wrong, but I think it's pronounced Cajun or Casian, and we don't have a similar word in English. And I'm going to do an entire episode on this topic, but it is the idea of small micro improvements over time leading to massive improvement. So if you can only do 7 minutes of kettlebells during your VO2 max exercise, it's perfect. Good job. Way to kill it. Go home, rest. Next time you do it, try to do 7 minutes and 30 seconds. Try to do 1 more. And if 1 more is too much, do 7 minutes and 15 seconds. Small improvements, progressive overload will lead to large improvements. The most important thing for you to focus on is quality over quantity. You want to be working hard. If you zone 2 cardio And zone one cardio, you should be able to carry on a conversation with very minimal problems. Zone one is you're just going for a walk. You're just going for a walk, burning some fat. Zone 2 cardio is kind of moderate. It's on the elliptical machine, and you're working, and your breathing is up and elevated. And carrying on a conversation or being on the phone is hard. You can do it, absolutely. But the person on the other side of the phone knows you're working out, knows you're breathing. Okay, that's zone 2. VO2 max, I've seen it listed as zone 5, maybe zone 4 cardio. You cannot carry on any kind of conversation. You would be lucky to blurt out one word in a garbled, breathless grunt when you're doing VO2 max cardio. It should be that difficult. Quality over quantity every day of the week when it comes to VO2 max exercise. Finally, one of the most important things when it comes to VO2 max exercise is nutrition. If your nutrition is not on point, if your nutrition is pathetic, if you're still eating garbage, if you're still putting crud in your body and not putting in large amounts of protein, good carbohydrates, good quality fats, you are going to burn out. Nutrition is key when it comes to VO2 max exercise. It's key when it comes to any kind of weight training or exercise. You need a balanced diet that's rich in protein, carbs, and healthy fats. You need to maintain proper hydration. You need to hydrate. Understand, hydrate or die. You need to be hydrated. Do not allow yourself to become dehydrated. Carry a water bottle around with you and make sure that you are drinking enough water and fluids throughout the day. So important. It is a mistake to allow yourself to get dehydrated or to not be properly nourished when training. That's as big a mistake as not warming up. You need to make sure you're warming up before you start a VO2 max exercise. But as I have said before, and I will say it again, none of this matters. None of it matters if you are inconsistent. You cannot train your guts out this week and then take 3 weeks off and expect to improve. You cannot work your guts out for a week and say, man, I did good, and then take the summer off or the winter off. Consistency, my friends. Consistency. If you're not consistent, you are wasting, I hate to say you're wasting your time, because exercise, no matter what, is great mentally. It helps you mentally. And the social aspect of going to the gym, it's a great thing. But if you want to improve your physical health, consistency is key. In every aspect of life, consistency is key. Improving your VO2 max takes time, takes dedication, and it takes smart training strategies. You can't just do aerobics and expect your VO2 max to improve significantly. But VO2 max has been documented as one of, if not the single most important attributes a person has as they age, one of the most important indicators of a long life. You want a long life? Improve VO2 max. Period. So I encourage you, start incorporating VO2 max training into your routine this week for better endurance and better overall fitness and longevity. I hope you're convinced. Please do not forget to click, like, share, do all that stuff. It helps more than you know. The algorithm, it's not friendly to a lot of us. And so it's important. Like, click, thumbs up, comment for the algorithm. And until next time, be good to yourself, be good to others, and as always, stay safe.